Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Penny, could you please do roll call?
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Councilmember Schwer?
Here.
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Nordby?
Here.
Mayor Monge?
Here. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move to motion.
Cassidy moves second.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Nay? Approved. Next thing on our list is presentation to Mayor Furlong, former Mayor Furlong, whatever we're going to call you from here on out.
Citizen Furlong.
Citizen
Furlong.
Citizen Furlong. Right, ready?
Yep.
All right. Please step forward, young man.
Good, how are you? Good to see you.
See you. Good, good.
All right, so let me come up here. So this is a mayoral proclamation honoring Terry Furlong as an extraordinary leader of the city of North St. Paul. Whereas Terry Furlong has selflessly served the city of North St. Paul for over 21 years as a member of the Park and Recreation Commission, Economic Development Authority, City Council, and as mayor. Whereas Terry Furlong has made significant contributions to many charitable and service organizations in North St. Paul and the surrounding communities. Whereas Terry Furlong was instrumental in creating the conditions for successful renaissance of our downtown, or historical downtown. Whereas there is nothing that makes Terry Furlong happier than a red ribbon cutting at a new business in town. Whereas Terry Furlong was the brainchild behind the newly imagined Mac Dinettes through the vision, determination, and relationships he brought a much desired restaurant to our downtown. Whereas there is no one in town with more snowman pins than Terry Furlong. Whereas Terry Furlong has promoted the city tirelessly through his many activities and connections. Whereas Terry Furlong successfully led the city through some of the biggest challenges, including a pandemic, civil unrest, and staff departures. Whereas Terry Furlong has earned the status of beloved resident and city leader. Now therefore, Mayor John Monge of North St. Paul, Minnesota, do hereby declare Terry Furlong as an extraordinary leader of North St. Paul.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Those are really neat.
Yeah, can you carry that for you?
Jeez, I'm thinking a lot.
Well, thank you so
Well,
much
thank you.
for your service
like to
today.
be
Stewart?
Well, I just want to say thank you to council, staff. It's been a pleasure working, the last 21 plus years, and I'm still kind of in the background, being on the EDA and the Veterans Park. But I just want to say, you guys are going to do great. I admire you up there, and you're going to do good things for the city. So you guys are all the newbies, except for Cole and Wong. We got 4 years of experience between the two of you. But what I do like is the new blood. New blood on the council, new mayor. John, I think you're going to do a fabulous job. I'm excited for where this town is going and where we've been in the past and where it's going now. And I just want to thank my wife too here for all. So, thank you, and good to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, pictures.
Well, we get the mayor up here.
Just like mom.
Brian.
Oh, gosh, same. Oh, boy.
Photo op.
Thank you.
And you got a great police chief too, just to let you know.
Doesn't hurt to throw that in.
You're now open to ticketing.
Yes. Way to cover yourself. Attaboy. regularly scheduled program. Next part is consent agenda. Do I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Would you like me to read it off, or?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'll just do
I
that.
told you,
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
no learning.
Consent agenda A, January 17th, 2023, workshop meeting minutes. Item B, January 17th, 2023, regular meeting minutes. Item C, general claims of $4,259,950.08. Item D, HRA claims of $29,614.99. League of Minnesota Cities Municipal Tort Liability Waiver. Item F, purchase 2022 Chevy 1500 pickup. Item G, application for charitable gambling to exempt permit for North Presbyterian Church on February 25th, 2023. Item H, service agreement with ADP, Inc. for payroll and human resource services. Item I, 7th Avenue Landscape Project, approve final payment and accept project.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Not? Motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Cole,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Ooh, I don't have to do that, sorry. All right. Next part is meetings open to the public. We'll do that at, do I need
That-
maybe the time? Okay. Slips, yep, I got 2 slips. Open to public at 6:38. We have 2. We have David Nelson. Come up, please. State your address, that'd be awesome. We have 3 minutes, please.
I'm jogging.
Attaboy.
If it takes a little bit longer, please, it's something that I've been bringing up before, and I must thank the city, the young lady downstairs, the crossing on Fifth that goes over by the new apartment buildings. They were not cleaning out the crosswalk there. Because I walk so slow, I cannot cross on Fourth. When the light changes green, it's a drag strip coming over. And if I get caught in the middle, it's not, where I'm at Fifth, I'm at top, I can see traffic both ways, it's safe for me to cross. And I must thank the city for cleaning that. It was very nice. But if the homeowner has to clean the crosswalks like my neighbors doing that and clean the sidewalks, why can't the apartment building clean that where those 2 crossings are? That should be their responsibility because my property owns to the center of the street. I had paid taxes for the center. They must pay taxes to the center. That should be their responsibility. And number 2, I brought it up before. I talked to Public Works and about pedestrian crossing signs right at where the post office, when you come out, you can come right across. And if nothing else, lights like you got up at the Holiday. And they said, they talked to Morgan, it's not feasible. Okay, I talked to Terry Furlong when he had meetings open to the public on Monday about it. He wrote it down. And apparently, I don't know what happened then, but I brought it up to the same lady when I talked about plowing that down there. It happened to me 3 times. It's the traffic going east and west have no problem because everybody can see me when I'm crossing, and an older lady printer got hit. It's when they turn right off of Margaret. You know, let's say it turns yellow and it's just about red. The guy wants to get out there ahead of the other traffic. He's got the pedal to the metal because he wants to be ahead of the cars. You cannot see the crossing right there. If there's a sign there or flashing lights or something like that, he's going to see that first before he's going to see that pedestrian. And it's going to make him stop and think and slow down. It's always the right turn off of Margaret that's the worst. You very seldom see it on when they turn left off of Margaret and go west and that, because they're sitting there, by the time they turn, they can see the pedestrian. But that right turn with the cars there, happened to me 3 times. The first time, the guy yelled at me to go down by the light. I don't want to go down to the light and walk in front of the bars. They got the doors open, you smell the smoke and hear the music and the liquor. I got bad lungs. That's why I try to stay on the other side of the street all the time. So I don't know what the signs cost or what they cost to put in, but how much do you put on the value of a human's life if they get killed? What's the value? What is the value if they get hurt and there's a lot of hospital stuff? I know the young lady that helped me with by the 5th Street there, she says it's not in the city budget. Wait a minute, what's the price of signs compared to human life? Is human life worth $74 or $80 or $100? I think it's worth a lot more. It's something that needs to be looked at in your budget that's coming up. And there's a lot older people that are crossing. I'm one of them, and there's a lot of seniors here in town. We don't want to go down to the light because it's shorter to go across there than if you go by the stoplights. You go another third distance longer to cross at the light than you do crossing at the post office.
We'll bring it up again.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for talking. That's what we can,
It's something we've already discussed, and it's already in motion, and actually I had conversations with Mayor Furlong with that as well. But yeah, and there's that place and a couple more in the future that we're looking at, the crosswalks.
so we are looking
We're
into.
moving forward with it,
Okay.
yes.
Did you hear that? Okay, thank you. Mr. Smalls, front and center.
John Schmall, 2750 Chisholm Avenue. I just want to let you know I have other things to do than this. But if you are going to ask me to sign up for things like push information, I will sign up. I think that's a wise idea to do that. But I will read what you send me. And that's when the problem rears its ugly head. Last week, or the 26th of January, there appeared, believe it or not, at 10:54 timestamp, an email message notifying everyone of the Planning Commission meeting. There were 2 of them, both at 10:54, 2 notifications. Usually that means there's been a change if there are 2. And I've been before this council last year multiple times saying, if you're making a change in the last one, let us know what the change is, highlight it, do whatever. Just don't put it in there and say, that's it. Well, they were the same, exactly the same. But I'll get to why I can't prove that. At 1:53 p.m., a message comes that's titled, Information on Your Subscription. You have been successfully unsubscribed from the following list. Planning Commission. I didn't ask for anything. Maybe they don't want me to be getting the Planning Commission notifications. But that's it. Nothing said. But then again, on 126, we get, or 127, we get a Planning Commission notification. 2 of them again. 2 Planning Commission notifications. And I believe one of those 2 had a change, but no notification that there has been a change. But guess what? Another Planning Commission notification goes out on 1/31, which changes the date for the Planning Commission meeting from 2/2 to 2/9. And in order to figure whether you've made a change or not, I go back to the original email messages to see what they said and compare it with the new ones. Can't do it. They wiped them off the face of the earth. No record of this other than the saying that we canceled the 2nd of February meeting. I didn't think that you were allowed to just wipe things off the face of the earth like that. What you had presented to the public is gone in 4 messages, other than to say that it has been canceled, and not even when the date of the new one. It just says canceled. And when you got the 2/9, or the 131 message, that's when it said the new meeting will be on 2/9. It just, I can't believe it.
Well, I know the one was canceled because we're short on planning commission people. We didn't have enough to do a quorum. So that's what popped up the 2/2 to 2/9.
Well, that's
have enough.
your ability to do it whenever you feel like it. But don't wipe it off the face of the earth.
We'll check and see where they go.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. All right. 6:47, public comments closed. Next part of business is business action items and recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor. First up is the 2023 North St. Paul History Cruisers Car Show Memorandum of Agreement. Looking for acceptance of the agreement and a memorandum of agreement. What we have, Bob, did you want to say a few words? Not really. You don't have to.
Yeah.
No, we just need to get the stamps so we can get our vendors, because they're knocking on our door to get signed up for Friday night. So if we can get your stamp of approval, we'll move forward.
Right,
And we'll go from there and see what happens this summer.
right.
Other than
Bob,
that,
can I
thanks.
ask one question?
Sure.
Are we, as a group, financially hamstringing you at all by only approving it year by year? Would there be a significant savings, let's say if we could approve it for 2 years, by insurance or anything?
No, our insurance has, lucky enough, to stay really consistent the last few years. No, just that, next year it'll be all easier for everybody, because hopefully we have the same faces across the front, and we'll all know what we gotta do, because, shortly, we try to get this done by the middle of January, because our vendors start really knocking on the door, because they said, well, if we ain't gonna be there, we gotta find a place to go, so, no, we're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you, guys.
Neighbor does the hot dog, and she said to me as I was out taking the garbage can back in, when is this gonna happen? So I said, tonight's gonna happen. All
Yep. So that's all we need, and we'll be in business.
right, thank you, appreciate it.
Yep, so we're looking forward to that first meeting in June. There'll be 16 car shows this year, and we're looking for approval or an agreement for the car show agreement and the memorandum of agreement from council. For a vote.
moved. Second?
Any questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right, next up is the ordinance to reduce the membership of the Park and Recreation Commission from 9 to 7 members. Were you going to discuss that, Brandy?
Sure. I put this one on the agenda. As you may know, the Parks Commission currently has 9 members, but they recently have been, it's been reduced to 6 based on retirements and ending of terms. So to be consistent across the board with all the other city commissions and the EDA, staff is recommending that this also be a 7-member commission. And the ordinance to accomplish that is included as an action item in the packet.
Do we currently have a full lineup of commissioners for parks?
We have 1 opening and we have 1 applicant, so we are looking to fill that position through an interview process.
Thank you.
Any questions? Anybody move?
I move.
Okay, Cassidy moves,
Second.
second by Lisa Wong. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Nay?
Item C is a resolution authorizing a cost share for Open Window Productions marketing video proposal. I believe that quote came in at about $10,000. Half of that bill will be paid by the EDA, and then 1/4 by the city and 1/4 by HRA.
Any questions? Anybody move?
So moved, Your Honor.
So move, Mr. Norby.
Second.
Second by Cassidy. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Next up, item D, resolution committing local match and authorizing contract signature for a deed grant for the Lilly Building redevelopment project. Deed is Department of Employment and EDA, Economic Development. Turn that over to you, Brandy.
Sure. We have received a request from Jim Lavelle, the developer for the Lilly Building project, and he is seeking a fourth grant for this redevelopment opportunity. He's received 2 from DEED so far, and this one is a redevelopment and brownfield grant. He has provided his engineer, who actually is submitting the grant on the city's behalf. So she is here in the audience if you would like to have her come up and do a little presentation about what the grant opportunity contains.
Sounds good. Welcome. Please state your name.
Sure, I'm Jennifer Force with SEH. So the project is applying for a redevelopment grant through DEED. It funds slightly different activities than the cleanup grant, which is related to soil and groundwater cleanup. This one will pay for geotechnical costs, public infrastructure such as lighting, sidewalks, as well as demolition. So has a slightly different focus than the cleanup grant, so. And there's a match requirement, but it is an unrestricted match, and so that'll be paid for with either TIF or private financing.
Any questions, anybody?
Questions?
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions to council here? No, you want to move it?
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
I have a question in regards to how the determination for 20 units, 20 of the residential units will be 80% of the AMI, the area mean income. Just curious on where that number came from.
Can you speak to that?
I don't have any specifics regarding that. That would be a better question for Jim or the development team, so.
I will get that information for you. And looking for a resolution on that.
Yep. Any no questions? I would move a motion.
I move to motion.
Cassidy first,
Second.
second Jason. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Next up is action item E, resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids for Housie Park Court reconstruction project. And would you like to take that over, Randy?
Sure. We also have Morgan Dolly in the audience as well to assist with any questions on this. But from my understanding, the Park Commission has been working on a plan for and design for this tennis court, pickleball court reconstruction for many, many months. And so they have finally come with a recommendation to City Council to refurbish that facility from tennis courts to pickleball courts. And the request on the agenda tonight is to authorize bids and approve the reconstruction plans.
Is this the same footprint as the existing court?
It's a little bit bigger. I think it extends about 10 to 15 feet north and west. And in that direction, so it's a little bit larger.
The gates into the courts are, it looks like 4.5 feet? Is
Correct.
that within ADA compliance?
Yes, it's my understanding that the plans as drawn do conform to ADA.
Thank you.
And the plan also does include walkways and connection ways that are ADA compliant to get from the new tennis courts down to the picnic area and over to Housy, where today none of that is connected.
That's been what we've been doing with most parks when we redo them, is bring them up to
Correct.
ADA.
Yep.
Yeah, it's my understanding from speaking with the engineer and also the landscape architect who designed the plans is that if any facility is being improved, that's the trigger for bringing it up into code compliance or ADA compliance. And so whenever we do another improvement in Housy Park, we'll have to make sure that those also come up to ADA standards.
Thank you.
Questions? Do you want me to?
Just looking for a resolution approving a court reconstruction project.
So moved, Your Honor.
Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second, Councilmember Cole. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you.
I think the Park and Rec will be really happy. This is a multi-year project. This started prior to COVID. We've had WSB involved, working at different things, so this is a good move for the park. It's the park closest to downtown, so for right now, it's our downtown park, so, it's a great move, so thank everyone for their support.
Next action item is item F, executing certificate of completion and TIF note relating to contract for private development with Anchorview LLC and tax increment financing housing district number 4-10. Turn that over to Community Development Director Brandy Howe and probably Michaela from Baker Tilly as well.
Yep, this is one of the requests that came from the developer. They're at that point where they are ready to consider their project complete. So we're closing out some items, and Michaela will do the presentation on the TIF note related to that.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Here tonight to provide a brief overview of the action item, which is executing the certificate of completion and the tax increment financing note related to the city's tax increment financing housing district number 4-10. Again, before you tonight is the consideration for both of those two. As background, the city entered into a contract for private development with Anchorview LLC, which was a developer of that multifamily housing project. Pursuant to the terms of the contract, once the developer has completed the minimum improvements, it is customary for the city to execute that certificate of completion and the TIF note. The TIF note is the assistance between the city and the developer. When the tax increment district was created, there was a financing gap, and the city pledged $2.4 million to the developer to reimburse for a portion of the costs associated with construction of that project. The developer did provide proof of incurring up to the $2.4 million pursuant to the contract. So all the terms within the contract to this point have been met by the developer, which would allow the city to proceed with executing both the certificate of completion and the TIF note. If you have any questions related to the documents or the district itself, I'd be happy to try to address them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to point out there's no resolution required, so they'll be signed documents and put in the files. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, item G, ordinance creating section 94-22, sidewalk encroachment in the municipal code. And Brandy, I'll turn that back over to you.
If you'll recall from our last city council work session, we looked at a draft ordinance that would create the sidewalk encroachment permit that would allow restaurants and bars and other entities that would want to apply for a permit to place private property in the public right-of-way. This would be a mechanism to allow them to do that. And at that meeting, we had several questions and comments from the city council in terms of how we might amend the, at that point, the draft ordinance. So of those, we modified the ordinance to change the timing, the timeframe for which the permit would be applicable from May 1st to November 15th. It was from April to November 1st. And given this change, we've kind of eliminated the provision for heating equipment because it seems like it's a little bit extraneous at that point, and it just simplifies the ordinance. We also added provisions that would require permit holders to lock their furnishings at the end of each day and to store them on off-site at the end of the season. And related to establishments serving alcohol, they would need to demarcate the specific outdoor seating area, and that would also be a requirement in their amended liquor license. We clarified that ropes or chains would not be permitted as a barrier to separate the seating area, but something a little bit more decorative, like fencing or planters, would be required. And the revocation section was also amended to simplify it and to improve the due process for permit holders. So if there's any other questions, I can field those, but if this is something that would move forward, then the next step would be to amend the fee schedule to establish a permit fee for these so that people can start applying for them this spring.
I have one question. As to our police chief, are you happy and comfortable with the way this is written?
I am. Excuse me. Yeah, I've been in the loop for a little while throughout the creation of this, and I don't have any concerns.
Okay.
Questions? Oh, sorry.
Brandy, for clarification, the only other question I think I have, did we have the discussion around whether it's open container leaving the building and getting into this contained area while they're on the 6 feet of sidewalk? And did we also talk about whether that the alcohol, any alcohol then would need to be carried by a server?
Yeah.
And that's maybe even a Phil question.
Can you go again with that? Sorry.
Are you talking, Councilmember Cole, are you talking about, will people be able to drink a beer out in this area? I mean, is
No,
that,
my question is, because the area is not directly connected to
Right.
property, there's, I can't remember if it was 5 feet or 6 feet that was put in the ordinance.
I think it's 7.5 feet.
So in that 7.5 feet, if I walk out of a bar, before I get to the 7.5 feet, am I open container?
no, so and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware of anything that would prohibit that in just a general sense. What you have is liquor license issues, and so one of the things we had to work through is a compact and contiguous area. So when we issue these liquor licenses, what we're gonna have to do is be mindful of areas where alcohol is gonna be served, and we have to describe that area in the liquor license. And so what we've talked to the state about, and this is something that's evolved, is you used to have all of the area, touching, and here we have sort of an island, if you will. And so what the state has indicated, and they're okay with, is that you simply describe the whole area. Now, you may have an area where you're not allowed to put tables or congregate and things of that nature, but you describe the whole area where service is acceptable. One of the things that we have talked about internally on this is, we understand that there's been a desire to do this, and this is an ordinance that's going to allow this to go forward. It is something I would encourage us to keep an eye on. The idea of not having these alcoholic beverages migrate off the approved area is something that is important. But beyond that, I have no other concerns about it.
Thank you.
Just thank you, Brandy. I know that everyone's been really excited for this, and it's been a long time coming, so I appreciate your work on it.
You're welcome, thank you.
Hey, you worked on it before you work here.
Did we need a vote on that or motion? Yeah.
Motion to approve?
Yep. Councilman Norby?
Second.
Councilmember Cole, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right. Item H is resolution of support for corridors of commerce funding request for Highway 36 and Highway 120 interchange by Washington County. We have City Engineer Morgan Dolly here to discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item before you here tonight is a resolution of support for funding for the Corridors of Commerce funding program that is put up by MnDOT, specifically for a funding request made by Washington County for potential grade-separated interchange at the intersection of Highway 36 and Highway 120. The background on that potential improvement for that intersection goes back several years, even to the improvement on Highway 36 in the mid-2000s. Originally, there was thought that 120 and 36 would be a part of the separated interchanges that were constructed with that project. That was delayed, and since that time, there haven't been any funds identified by MnDOT or other agencies to be able to complete that improvement. It has been identified as a safety need within the area with the completion of the Hadley Avenue interchange by Washington County just to the east on 36. It's the last at-grade signalized intersection on 36 inside the 694 loop. And has a high crash rate, and so it certainly has been on the radar for both the cities of North St. Paul and Oakdale, as well as being on the border of Ramsey County and Washington County. So previously in, I believe it was 2019, there was another Corridors of Commerce solicitation by MnDOT. At that time, Ramsey County supported funding for the interchange and put in a request. It was not successful, although the project did score relatively well. It just did not make the cut for the funding at that time. So this time, Washington County is taking the lead agency on that funding request and has asked cities of Oakdale, North St. Paul, and also the business communities for letters of support or resolutions of support to be able to submit that funding application. So there's no requirement for this resolution to be completed, but the projects that do have these resolutions or letters of support from I should have mentioned the Oakdale Chamber of Commerce and also North St. Paul Business Association, that they'll score better, right? And so the idea is for the county to reach out to these cities and business organizations, hopefully collect these, and then they will be completing that application sometime in March, and I believe the announcements will be made later spring, possibly early summer, in terms of whether or not the funding has been awarded. So there's up to $250 million as a part of this program expected for this solicitation in 2022, 2023. And again, it's a simple resolution of support for the funding. It doesn't replace any sort of municipal consent for an ultimate project if it does move forward. So municipal consent by Oakdale, North St. Paul, that would be a separate item to consider in the future by the cities. This is simply just lending support for the idea of applying for these funds for Washington County to be able to complete their application this year with this round of funding. So with that, I'll stand for any questions the council might have before considering the resolution in your packet.
I have one. One, I will certainly vote affirmative to moving forward with that. And I know the last time we went through this, we did have a decent score, but the score still wasn't high enough to get it approved. Is there anything more that the city can do to help elevate the score, for lack of a better term, to move this higher to the higher top of the decision tree?
Councilmember Cole, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So at this time, really what they're asking for is these resolutions of support. I think that the city manager will be, a business association meeting is coming up. Is that correct? Yeah, so there'll be some opportunity for the business association to be able to hear about that. And I think for that business community to understand, if there is a resolution of support already passed. I can't say that Oakdale already passed theirs, but I believe that it was on a previous council agenda. So, making sure that there's some sort of consensus or understanding amongst those areas, I think that's going to be the best thing that the city can do at this time to lend support. There have been some discussions about a corridor coalition, if you will, on Highway 120 that has been idea has been floated in some meetings that were hosted by Washington County. And the idea is that coalition would be made up of possibly some elected officials or city staff people from all of the different cities up and down Highway 120, including representatives from, not just Oakdale and North St. Paul, but Maplewood, Matamidi, right? And so it's bigger. That coalition is potentially bigger than this interchange, but this interchange certainly is a big part of that. So, as those opportunities for participation, advocacy with state elected officials, those sorts of things, if the community wants to be able to find support for the funding that it will take to build this, I think that will be important moving forward, because it just so happens that Highway 120 and certainly the interchange is right on the border of 2 counties and 2 cities, and sometimes that can be a challenge to build that consensus among multiple, government agencies or parties, right? So I think we will look for more communication from our neighbors and from the county as to that coalition, and certainly council might have a discussion about who might sit at the table for that coalition moving forward. But I think that staff will bring forward to you, other updates as they become available, including updates on the success for this funding, or if there are other funding packages that might be needed to complete the project. Knowing that an award is unknown, and even fully developed cost estimates have not been done yet by Washington County, there may be multiple sources of funding that are needed. So this might just be one. There might be others, and it might take several years to put something together to actually find the funding to build the improvement at the intersection. We know after many, many years of meetings with MnDOT that MnDOT has not been able to allocate, or they don't want to allocate funding to this project, as they kind of see this more of a local improvement. And Highway 120 ultimately is anticipated to be turned back from a state highway to a county highway at some point, because it functions more in that type of roadway as opposed to kind of a more of a trunk highway, even though that's the designation it holds right now. So it'll be something that will be evolving, and staff will continue to communicate opportunities and potential, other support. But I think ongoing participation and engagement and those types of things will be important, not just for city council, but for the public, if they're interested, to reach out, to ask questions, get information when those opportunities arise.
You said 120's going from state to...
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So the question was about that idea of a turn back. I guess that's more of a technical jargon term, but turn back is when a road authority might change jurisdiction of a road, like from a state to a county, or a county to a city, for example.
They did that with Highway 5 and changed it to County Road 14 over in there.
Exactly. It does occur.
But aren't we, Ramsey County and Washington, right in the middle of that then?
Right.
Make it really
That creates a complication with 2 counties, and it could be just like North St. Paul jointly owns responsibility for Ariel Street, for example, where it's a 50-50 between North St. Paul and the city of Maplewood. It might be a 50-50 county road between Ramsey County and Washington County. That's to be determined. MnDOT kind of identifies roads within their system that are candidates for turnback, and 120 has been on that list for 20 years, maybe even 30 years. It just has not happened yet. And we don't know when that might happen, but a lot of the discussions that are going on with respect to the interchange, and there's an ongoing study being conducted right now by MnDOT as the lead agency, looking at the whole corridor, and what they're trying to do is get ahead some of the necessary environmental study things that would have to happen if there were significant improvements made to 120 using federal funds, for example. There's a requirement for a lot of that environmental work to be done, and so they're trying to get ahead of that by conducting this corridor study for 120. And that may also inform, once that's completed, more of a comfort level by either one or both of the counties in terms of, are we willing to take that on? If we are going to take it on, Does that come along with some funding from the state or another agency to be able to take it on, but in an improved fashion? And is that only in some locations or the whole corridor, right? So a lot of that will become more apparent, I think, in the next 12 to 18 months as that study is completed.
If I could add, so it sounds like this process for the Century Avenue Coalition that they're putting together started years ago, but they were more focused on south of I-94. I guess they've accomplished what they were looking to get accomplished, and now they're moving north of 94, going all the way up to 694. So yes, they were looking for 2 members of the elected body to be on there. I had discussions with John on that. John was going to be on that, and he had suggested Tim to be on that as well. And as a staff liaison, I think Brandy and myself were going to be just the liaison on that as well. Yes, this is, I believe it's 9 or 11 different cities, 2 counties, the state. It's a really big deal. And part of this, hopefully with any luck, we could get that trail completed around Silver Lake as well. That'll be one of the parts of the discussion.
Right. That's definitely on our list, yes.
Thank you, Maureen. Any other questions for Maureen?
We just have the resolution.
Looking for a voter resolution.
You want to move resolution?
So move.
Councilmember Schweder?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Wong. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Carries. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next up in the business action items is item I, police employee suspense hour overages for 2022. And we have Chief Phil Babenroth here to discuss.
Well, hi, everyone. Mr. Mayor, Council, good to see everyone. I'll see if I can get this screen shared. There we go. Perfect. Just to start, just a general overview of how our schedules work in the police department. So we are, our patrol team works 12-hour shifts so we can maintain full coverage of police services 24 hours a day. They work a schedule of 4 days on, followed by 4 days off in a row. We have a day team on the A team days, and then a B team days, and then same for night teams, A and B on the night shift. So our current setup is 4 sworn officers per shift. That's 1 sergeant and 3 officers. This setup makes sure that we have enough officers to keep themselves safe and then keep the community safe. It also allows for proactivity and community policing, and then when we're fully staffed, officers are able to properly use all of their suspense and accrued vacation time. So here's how that looks to put it in a Excel picture format. So we have our A team and B team, day shift, night shift, 1 sergeant, 3 officers on each team. We currently have 1 officer in training, so that he's highlighted. And then we have 1 open position. So we have 2 teams that are only staffed with 3 right now. But other than that, the other 2 teams are full at 4. So the suspense hour system, it was new to me coming here, so it took me a little bit to fully understand it, but I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on it now. It's a bank of hours that's utilized to pay to balance out pay periods at 80 hours for every single pay period. So officers work a schedule of the 4 consecutive 12-hour shifts followed by 4 consecutive days off. In this schedule, officers and sergeants will work either 72, 84, or 96 hours in each pay period on a rotating basis throughout the year. During pay periods that officers work above the 80 hours, those extra hours are added to their suspense bank. In pay periods where they work below the 80 hours, the hours are supplemented from their accrued suspense bank in order to make them whole at 80. So this doesn't include any additional overtime shifts or details or special assignments that they might, this is just regular wage that they're working. So under this schedule, officers work 2,184 hours in a year. That's 104 extra hours beyond the 2080 of Fair Labor Standards Act. So it's basically an extra 104 hours that they need to get off on vacation, which they can do when we're fully staffed. So in a typical year, suspense hours are going to be balanced out when we're able to give everyone on the team days off, or they start late, or they leave early. The staffing shortages and duty injuries that some of our officers sustained in 2022 did not allow all of our officers to use these excess suspense hours, and now we're in the situation that we're in. So if we were to say, you know, it would have been if we were to allow all of the suspense hours to be used, then we would have been below minimums, which then would have created the need to fill officers working on overtime. So it would have been a horse apiece when it comes to, you let them use their suspense, and then you have to ask for overtime coverage in order to allow that. So we're in a tough situation. When we have long-term injuries, which we have had, it's trying to balance out allowing people to take time off as they request, continuing, still making sure we're keeping our post license so we can be licensed peace officers in Minnesota and complete the mandatory training, allowing bid vacations, which we did. Nobody was canceled their bid vacation in 2022, which I was very glad that we were able to do that. And then I'm always concerned about just creating that unhappy overwork culture, which brings additional stress, burnout, and retention if people can't get time off. So the overages and suspense is not something I am glad to see, and I am absolutely going to be working to make sure that we don't have this situation again going forward. But it all comes back to staffing, which allows us to properly use these excess hours banks that we accrue. So here's the whole schedule. A lot of math going on, and a lot of number crunching. Looked at when I was at Camp Ripley all week last week for a training. I was deep into the 2022 schedule and went through every single pay period and tallied up the total amount of hours that each team worked within those pay periods. And that's how I fully understand the system now. So when one team works a pay period and only has 72 hours, the other team is working that same pay period with 96 hours. So it constantly is, when one's low, the other one works more. Just how their 4 days on, 4 days off fits within that 14-day pay period. And then they both work the 84 at the same time, and then it's back to when one's low, the other's high. So on the far right is the 2080, so that's your standard Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day, and then the total hours worked under this schedule shows at the bottom for Team A and Team B is 2184 through each pay period in 2022. So we're now here with a couple officers having excess hours beyond that 2080 because they weren't able to utilize all of those hours, unfortunately. The total amount of hours in excess of 2080 for all officers and sergeants, 264.75 hours. Total salary cost of this equates to $16,910.06. When you throw para and Medicare in there, it's $20,148.33. As I mentioned, going forward, once we can hopefully get this final officer hired, we won't be in this situation again, and all of our officers and sergeants are able to properly use all of their accrued hours, including suspense. Any questions for me on the suspense or the police schedule? Happy to answer.
How do you plan to alleviate this going through this upcoming year?
Hiring, it's 100%. It all comes down to having the full team. So if we have a full team, this can be achieved. If we don't have a full team, it is tough to give people vacation or suspense, because we can't have 0 police officers in the city. So we have to sacrifice things like leaving early and taking days off in order to show up to work to take 911 calls. So if we can get staffing, which is not an easy thing in the modern day law enforcement, absolutely seeing a huge lack of interest across the board. As I mentioned, being at Camp Ripley last week, got to meet lots of chiefs from around the state, and I was sad to hear, but also glad to hear that it's a problem that's affecting every single agency throughout the state, and it's not just a North St. Paul thing. Every agency is short 5, 10, 15, 20 officers. So it is widespread, but if we can, that is the nexus to allowing this schedule, or making the schedule work and letting officers use all of the suspense and their vacation, and even just improving overall morale, getting days off and improving their wellness is a very important thing. So we only have one to go, thankfully. We've definitely been in worse situations, being short more than just one. So we're heading in the right direction, and I'm very hopeful that we get fully staffed in a short amount of time.
Have you come up with a plan with the 2 additional officers that were just hired to start alleviating some of those additional hours that are sitting in the bank?
So this
With other
plan is going to
officers?
be to wipe the slate clean, and then we'd be back at 0, basically, with a couple pay periods started in 2023. But this is to solve the excess from 2022. So back on, once we get these 2 spots filled, then every single team will be able to adequately use all of their excess suspense hours and vacations. So there's only soon to be 1 team that's only staffed at 3. The rest of the teams will be great.
So this is what's coming to them. It's been done, but this is to wipe the slate, so then we start over with this. And you have another officer coming. Is it always been 3 officers and a sergeant as far as teams in North St. Paul?
It is not, no.
We've gone up, or?
It is, yeah,
Was it-
thankfully.
So what was it before?
I believe it was 3, which then equates to 2 often, with sick calls and vacation and just, utilizing time off. So, now we're at a much safer number for the police officers and the community, because if you get 2 calls that are bigger calls at the same time, crimes of violence happening at the same time, which they often do, then you're running the risk of only sending 1 officer to somebody that has a gun, or it's a tough decision, and it's a bad place to be in. So
this is your comfortable level. You're comfortable with what is on this board right now?
as far as patrol, yeah, it would be fantastic, and I'll get to that in my later update. It would be great to have an additional officer to help with when there is somebody gone. Because, basically when we have 4, that equates to 3. Because when somebody on this team is able to use vacation, then we're down to 3. And with the 104 extra hours, the 160-ish hours of vacation, the 96 hours of holiday, that each officer gets each year, I mean, in the warm months, we're definitely at 3, because somebody's always gonna be gone. So, yeah, having somebody as a vacation relief would be great.
Have we gone from 2 to 3 since you've been chief, or is that before that?
We,
Officers on the street.
yeah, we've increased the officer number. Council has greatly appreciated the support, what we added an additional sergeant and an additional officer in 2000. Yes. Yeah.
So we've been trying to keep up then as far as where we're at, our, being able to have security and.
Absolutely. We're heading in the right direction.
Of course, a city this size, it's always tough with budgets and things like that, so it's good to see that, things are moving as far as forward with things, but, it's always a tough situation, because, like you say, criminals don't call in sick because the officer's not there.
Right.
So, but I just wanted to get a feel of where we're at, if we've been going in the right direction, as far as our size budget, where we've been and how we've been doing as far as that. Because, a city this size, it's always tough to be able to, like I've been talking to Brian and others, we're too small to be little, too little to be big. So we're at that size where it's really a tough for us, but we've showed, the appreciation. So I want to make sure that, for the police department, that we're always talking and understanding the expenses plus the safety, and where we're at for our size is always a concern that I hear about. We love our police officers. How are we doing as far as our size city with our officers and for the safety and the well-being as far as that in budgets? So
Sure.
Appreciate you keeping an eye on the budget and doing that, and we can still move forward.
Yeah, well, I greatly appreciate all the support that council has shown our police department throughout the time that I've been here. Getting the 2 additional has allowed this. Only having 2 officers on the street is just not safe for officers or the community, and definitely does not allow any proactive police work. That is a pure call response model only. So having the 4, as long as we can get fully staffed, is a great plan.
Just to make sure I understand this, if you would have been fully staffed, this would not have happened.
Correct.
So I'm going to pull a number out of thin air. Let's say an officer starts at 80,000. It would have been an $80,000 hit to the 2022 budget for this not to happen, with only the city approving this 20,000. Although you're asking for money, technically, you were already approved that money, so it's actually a $60,000 savings to the 22 budget that you were already approved for?
So these are hours actually worked already. I'm not, can you repeat the question? I'm not quite sure.
If I may,
Tracking.
so yes, so some of these times where if he's not fully staffed, then clearly we're not paying for that police officer. So he might be showing extra overtime for the year trying to fill that position, but also at the end of the year, he may actually be under budget because we didn't have an officer there that would have,
Right.
for 80,000, the example you gave, wasn't being paid out. So does that answer your?
Yep.
Call?
Thank you.
You're staring at me.
Lisa, you have anything?
Go ahead.
Staring at the council.
Then if I'll jump in. Being one of the 2 longer-term people up here, we've supported everything you've asked for, Phil. We continue to support it. Thank you for what you do. Appreciate it. The hiring and recognition ceremony last week was fantastic. Thank you. I look forward to continuing to see those. Council has supported you with an additional $600,000 in budget spending since you've been on board. We increased the overtime budget from $60,000 to $100,000. If I'm not mistaken, I believe overtime for last year probably rolled in at 140,000. Adding this 20,000 on top of it puts, if you add them together, the overtime overspending over what was done rolls up to about $180,000. My ask, because I know you've got a lot more coming and we want to continue to support, my ask is that we figure out a way in 2023 to bring those numbers back down to within budget.
Sure, yeah, that's completely understandable. And the additional number, I think, is an important one to bring up is we're still within the employee costs of so overtime was high, but then employee costs were low because of the staffing issue. So we still came within budget, if I'm not mistaken, on employee costs. Yeah, I absolutely agree. We're hoping to get it all under control when it comes to budget, and that all depends on staffing. So if we can find the magic to get good folks on board and get staffing, then that's the key. But I'll be sure working hard. We got a nice recruitment video coming out soon, so we're hoping that helps give us a boost.
Are there any other alternative staffing structures that you can explore that would, alleviate some of that overtime?
There are absolutely different models. So just to be clear, this model doesn't create any overtime in the schedule, just at its core. And in this system, nobody's getting overtime just from working their shift. So another option, so I came from Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. They have a different option. They work 10-hour shifts, 4 days on, 4 days off. They actually end up owing county, in the Sheriff's Office sake, about 120 hours a year under that model because they work less than 2,080 hours. That presents some difficulty because then it's you're calling deputies and their sake back in on their days off saying, you owe us time, you have to come to work. And then if you get to the end of the year and people haven't worked all of their version of a suspense time, then you end up having to take their vacation bank or another bank of hours. So it's really, it's not a fantastic alternative either. It's just the opposite of this. So they don't work as much hours, but then they have to pay back hours. So then you're begging them to come to work on their days off, and nobody really enjoys doing that. And nobody enjoys getting their vacation hours taken away from them. So, and not to mention that schedule only works, so we wouldn't be able to work 10-hour days because we don't have enough officers to, there'd basically be 4 hours of the day where we don't have cops on the street. So we need the 12-hour shifts in order to maintain full coverage. And not to mention our officers really do like this schedule. They like the 4 days off. It's a mini vacation every single time that they're not working. So I really want to stick with it. And that's why I'm absolutely going to spend as much time as it takes to get fully staffed. And the recruitment strategies, it's tough. I mean, we're up against, read an article the other day, $30,000 signing bonus for police officers. It wasn't in Minnesota, thankfully. But that's the kind of things that are being thrown out there just to get officers on board. It's just a tough time in law enforcement.
Quick question on your schedule you have up there. When it's full and you have that other position, if somebody's on vacation, does somebody fill in with overtime, and is that counted for in your budget for 2 weeks of vacation for officers and things like that?
So when somebody's gone, no. If we're down to 3, and we've even dropped it down to 2 in order to allow all of the proper use and additional trainings. So in order to prevent this, we had to sacrifice an extra person on the street without having to pay overtime to cover that. So we dropped down as low as 2. It's not something I took lightly on doing that, but that is going to allow training, allow us to complete the mandatory training, prevent excess suspense, allow vacation. That's a crucial piece that is going to allow this to work going forward.
Any more questions? All right, next up, business item J, McKnight Road Water Main Improvements.
Do we need?
Whoops. Do you have to, I apologize.
Approve it.
You have to approve it, I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay.
Jumped ahead.
Motion to approve?
I second.
Norby?
Oh, that's right.
Casey? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay? There we go. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
All right, next up, McKnight Road Water Main Improvements, City Project Number 22-04. Receive bids and award contract. Engineer Morgan Dolly to speak to that, please.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this next item for consideration in front of you. Actually, I'll take the next 2 items all together. There's 2 separate actions as 2 separate agenda items, but they're both related. Council can certainly act on those following presentation and questions. And really what we have before you is receiving bids and contemplation of awarding a construction contract for an infrastructure improvement project that includes improvements to the City of North St. Paul water main within McKnight Road, which is a county road. A little bit of background, I have a map up here on the screen for the benefit of the council, anybody in the audience and folks watching at home. But just to give a project location, general understanding, on McKnight Road, which again is a Ramsey County road, within and under that road, within county right-of-way, the City of North St. Paul does maintain water main, drinking water distribution system. And also even outside of the City of North St. Paul, you can see north of Beam Avenue, I don't know if you can see my pointer or not, right? Right about there, that is kind of the North St. Paul border. So north of that is actually the City of Maplewood, but North St. Paul does serve Maplewood residents with drinking water in that area. In about 2019, 2020, by way of background, Ramsey County contacted North St. Paul staff, letting them know that they had plans in the next 5 to 10 years to do some roadway improvements on McKnight Road, to do an overlay project. The date was not really set in stone, but they had said that it's coming up and you might want to take a look at your utilities under the road, see if they need any attention. At that time, Public Works did a little bit of investigation, and actually on the map here, now this is not a complete indication, illustration, but some of those red stars are some of our record keeping in terms of where we have water main breaks. And mostly in the southern area of where Ramsey County was intending to overlay, there were a few water main breaks. But the overlay that the county wants to do is from 11th Avenue, which is highlighted in this red line here on the south end, all the way up to County Road D, which is up by 694 in Maplewood. So that's what they want to overlay. And that was kind of the extent of where Public Works took a look at potentially doing some improvements. This was included in the capital improvement plan as a city project 2204, and previously the council did authorize going out for bids last fall. Now, knowing that it's a really large area, there were concerns in terms of the costs. What our approach was to give as many different options available in terms of awarding a project for the city council to consider. So in some of the material that you'll see in your packet, there's discussion of base bid and alternate A and alternate B. But basically, what we have done is set up in 3 different sections, breaking it into pieces so that not everything needs to be awarded if the council doesn't want to, or if there's different options. The second item in your packet is also another option in terms of rather than digging up or what we call pipe bursting, some of these water main, there's an option to actually line through them with more trenchless technologies that last year during some of the volatility in the construction market, there was some information to show that maybe lining water main would be competitive. So we put that out there for bid as well. Unfortunately, the water main lining did come in slightly more expensive, so that's why the second item that you'll act on is actually accepting those bids but rejecting all of them, and that's recommended by staff. Now back to the initial offering, which is pipe bursting, and it also is trenchless. It's not going to be digging up all of McKnight Road at once. We're trying to excavate as little as possible. But it is replacing the existing water main with new water main and replacing the existing services that might be to homes or businesses on either side with new services. So there is some excavation involved. And I'll just focus on the base bid because following receipt of these bids with all the different options and the different alternatives from a construction standpoint, city manager, public works director, myself, finance director looked at all of these different things, different competing interests with respect to utility and infrastructure throughout the city and available budget numbers. So at this time, staff is recommending award of the base bid only, which is the southern portion of the area that we looked at. So that would be from 11th Avenue north to 17th Avenue. So just focusing on those areas with the bid we had 6 bidders, which is actually very competitive. Those bids ranged from just over $1 million to $1.385 million. The engineer's estimate was 1.26, I believe, so just slightly higher than the 5th bidder, but still in the middle of the pack, which is where we want to be, I guess, from an estimating standpoint. And the low bidder is bituminous roadways in the amount of $1,10,808.70. So staff is recommending for the initial bid award of just the base bid only, none of the either alternates, which are areas to the north. I mentioned in the staff report that those other areas will be considered in the future if they, depending on funding and depending on priorities within the infrastructure system. We have had good proactive talks with Ramsey County in terms of them working with us from a scheduling standpoint to make sure that they don't just preemptively come through with their paver before we're done. So we think that they'll give us some flexibility if in fact we want to try to do some of those more areas. But scheduling wise, if the contract's awarded by council tonight, contractor would start typical kind of early construction season, May, and be wrapped up by this fall, I believe. There might be more exact dates in the memo, but that's typically what we would expect. With that, I'll stand for any questions. A reminder also that, so the first action would be acting on a resolution to receive the bids and award a contract to the low bidder for the base bid. For the first bid offering, and the second one would be to receive all bids and reject all bids for the water main lining, or CIPP, which stands for cured in-place pipe lining. That's a technology term, but that was the second offering. So those we were recommending that we reject all bids. So with that, I'll stand for any questions council might have.
Are the remaining areas on the CIP?
Councilmember Wong, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, so they are on the map and they're in kind of slotted order. Area A, or the base bid, was identified for this year. Alternate 1, which is the second area to the north, 17th Avenue to Beam Avenue, that was slotted for 2024. And and the third area, which is alternate 2, was Beam Avenue to County Road D. That was slotted in the CIP for 2025. And I should mention, now that we actually have these bids, it's a very good indication of how contractors will bid it in the future. We can't predict, inflation or how prices might change between now and 2024, for example, but it's very detailed and a good indication of what to expect within reason for future, offerings if the city does put that out. But again, that will be a determination made with Public Works and weighing kind of all the different alternatives and available funding as well, too.
Thank you.
For that area, if memory serves, they did a bunch of storm sewer stuff, so we don't worry about that at all, right? Because they used to be quite a flooding area down there.
Mr. Mayor, yes. So there were some storm sewer improvements made about McKnight Road and Shawnee Avenue, if I'm remembering correctly, that improved some of the flooding through that area. And the county's project, from an overlay standpoint, is not anticipated to do anything significant from a drainage standpoint. They look at it mostly just as a pavement preservation effort where they'll grind off the top layer of asphalt, pave it. They do make ADA upgrades at ped ramps at different intersections, and they might do some striping and things like that to improve the road, but they do limit it to just pavement and not utilities. So again, in terms of what we're seeing on our radar for potential needs, the water main kind of rose to the top. Public Works did look at sanitary sewer. Nothing significant or that was rising to the top, as obvious as some of those water main breaks, especially in the southern portion. Now, all of that water main is relatively old. The northern piece seems to be performing better, and so we may be able to get more years out of that. An overlay might be expected to have a 15-year lifespan, right? And we can't predict exactly when the county is going to come and do, multiple improvements on the road over time, but the hope is that, if we do have a problem, that we're trying to take care of it proactively, such that, a water main break repair might not need to be made right after they're done paving, for example.
Any other questions, anybody? Okay, now you're gonna have to say that again.
For the actions? Sure. So the first action is consideration of a resolution in your packet to accept the bids and award a construction contract for the base bid amount of $1,010,808.70 for the McKnight Water Main Improvements City Project 22-04 to Bituminous Roadways Incorporated.
Okay, that's the first. Anybody motion on that?
So moved.
So move. Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second. Councilmember Norby, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carry.
And the second action, Mr. Mayor, would be that the council accept all bids received and reject all bids by resolution for the McKnight Water Main CIPP Lining Improvement City Project number 22-04.
I'll make a motion.
Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second. Councilmember Cole, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Hire him. That's a good job.
He does a good job. And that's why he's going to stay here and do another good job. Next up is the Silver Lake Aerator Operations and Maintenance Cooperative Agreement, authorized signatures. I'll turn that back over to you, Morgan.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this next item before you is consideration for authorization of signatures, execution of a joint cooperative agreement, a copy of which is in your packet, that contemplates the transition of ownership and maintenance responsibilities for an aerator in Silver Lake. It's on the north side of the lake off of Joy Park, technically in the city of Maplewood. And what I can say is that this has been a very long conversation between the city of North St. Paul, the city of Maplewood, and Valley Branch Watershed District, and Ramsey County. There is a lot of detail in your packet with respect to some of the history there with the past conversations. Basically, the very short version is that Ramsey County had indicated in early 2021, I believe, that they were not going to maintain that aerator anymore. They weren't going to put it in, take it out. They'd been doing it for several years. I think their feeling at that time that it was the only aerator they had in their system. It wasn't anything that Public Works was technically set up to do, and they were advocating or lobbying for an agency or a group of agencies, the two cities in the watershed district, to consider a transition of ownership on that aerator. Now, what is that aerator and what does it do? The background on that is that basically it's a bubbler like in your fish tank, right? It bubbles oxygen up primarily in the wintertime. It goes in the wintertime. They pull it out in the springtime, I believe, when the snow melts or when the ice melts. And it's there to prevent the ice from completely closing off or icing all the way down to the bottom of the lake, which can cause, or apparently, according to the annals of history that I've been able to find in the past, without an aerator, it has caused kind of a significant fish kill situation, which from an environmental standpoint is not good. If you lose all of your fish population in a lake, that can affect the aquatic plants, and that can affect the ecology, and then that can affect the water quality over time. So at some point, and the DNR permits this sort of thing and allows within a DNR water body such as Silver Lake for aerators to be installed. They issue permits to different agencies. In fact, the city of North St. Paul maintains a similar aerator in Casey Lake for similar purposes, which I think was probably initiated by conversations between the city of North St. Paul and the DNR years ago. In this instance, Ramsey County had initially started owning it and maintaining it, installing it in the first place. Originally, Joy Park was a Ramsey County park, and I think that is how Ramsey County got wound up with it in the first place, that it was their park originally. Eventually, Joy Park was turned back or transitioned to City of Maplewood, so now it's a Maplewood Park. And you know, I guess, again, why does this aerator exist? It does provide some environmental or ecological benefit to the lake. DNR certainly supports it. But somebody needs to own it and maintain it, and Ramsey County had said at that time that we're not going to do it. Somebody else has to take it over. So with this joint conversation with multiple cities and the watershed district as a water regulatory agency that is in and around Silver Lake for that portion of North St. Paul, there were several meetings, several conversations. Ramsey County had put forth some ideas about how it could work. Certainly it would need to be by a cooperative agreement that would be formally entered into by the different agencies. And that's really what the council is considering here tonight is authorization of signatures on that agreement. At that time, previous administration for the city of North St. Paul had indicated that North St. Paul had a desire to have that aerator remain in existence, and had said, if we can talk about some of the other details, North St. Paul is willing to be the lead agency or consider being the lead agency on this to keep the conversation going. At that point, there was a conversation with the city council in, I put that in the packet, at a work session in July of 2021. Workshop, I'm sorry. And so some of the outcomes of those multi-agency conversations were shared with the council at that time, with North St. Paul potentially being the lead agency at that time. Ramsey County had offered a one-time lump sum payment of $10,000 to be able to cover initial maintenance and potential, capital, I guess, contribution, knowing that at some point the pump and the aerator and some of the components of that will need to be replaced. There's a definite lifespan to those items, and that I think at that time Maplewood and Valley Branch Watershed District had agreed to share pretty much 50-50 the ongoing electrical energy costs for running the aerator on an ongoing basis. At that time, the city council had said, well, we're generally okay with that. We agree that, it provides a benefit to the lake. Most of the residents that live on the lake, or most of the properties that are on the lake, I think, all are North St. Paul residents. So even though, part of this is that North St. Paul Public Works would have to enter the city of Maplewood to install and retrieve the aerator, that they wanted to leverage that position as lead agency to be able to get more upfront money. So with that, staff did continue negotiations. Ramsey County did increase their financial contribution to $20,000 from $10,000, and the city of Maplewood added another $5,000. So at this time, the one-time lump sum payment as a part of this cooperative agreement city of North St. Paul would receive $25,000 in addition to Valley Branch Watershed District and the city of Maplewood still splitting the electrical costs. So that's the general background. I know that's a lot. The city attorney reviewed the agreement. There is, he pointed out that this agreement does have, I don't think I put it in my staff report, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's kind of an end date to the agreement, right? It doesn't last forever, so that's a positive thing from an agreement standpoint, that it can be recontemplated apparently at that time. There's also some provisions for adjustments to the energy costs, knowing that electricity, can change over time. And so after a certain point within the agreement, North St. Paul can adjust those electrical costs contributions by City of Maplewood and Valley Branch on an annual basis to keep track with maybe changing energy costs, as that might happen over time. There's also information in your packet, more than you want to know in the presentation, but all the information about when was the last time the pumps were installed, how much that replacement cost is anticipated to take. We do have Public Works Director Ron Ritchie here in case you have specific questions in terms of maintenance. Public Works has met with Ramsey County maintenance folks they've kind of been observing what's going on, so they generally have an understanding of how to do it. North St. Paul, again, does have a similar contraption at Casey Lake, but it is a little bit different up there. So the assumption of duties by the city of North St. Paul would probably start next winter, because it's already in and operating by Ramsey County right now in anticipation of execution of this agreement. Valley Branch Watershed District did approve their version or their signatures on this same agreement at their last board meeting, and I think that the city of Maplewood is considering it on their agenda next week as well, too. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
You mentioned that for the power, we're getting it off of Excel. North St. Paul doesn't go to that corner, correct?
That is one of the areas that is actually, so the borders of every electric utility in Minnesota are spelled out through the Public Utilities Commission, and that originally was our service territory, but we have what's called exceptions to the service territory because of just the logistics of trying to get there and the expense. So we would have to put in all new poles along Highway 120. We'd have to have an over-under build of Excel and us for us to get the power up there. So by exception, they are serving that because it didn't make any sense for us to do that.
Is that specifically in that place? Is there some kind of is that the spot? Or is that just a spot that was chosen 30, 40 years ago?
I believe part of the reason is that because the deepest part of the lake is right by there as well, to keep that oxygenated, and so that doesn't freeze all the way down, yeah.
And there's public access with the park, and there is some infrastructure there, right? So, I mean, if it were to be moved, there would be, I guess I would say, significant additional cost.
Is that something, Ron, that we're going to be taking out ourselves then in the fall or the spring? Or are they going to take it out and restore it, that type of thing?
Good evening, everyone. It's not something that we actually even have to take out or take in. There's a structure that's in place. It's basically it's a manhole that is down in the ground. It goes down, I'd like to say 10, 12 feet. There's a pump that's in there that takes water into that manhole. It goes actually around the pier. There's a pipe that goes around the pier, and then the water gets put back into the lake there. So it's just taking water out of the lake and putting it back in to keep that circulation going and keeping the ice going. So there won't be dealing with the pumps or anything like that unless they're bad or have to be serviced or something like that.
Are you okay with that extra? Does that work for you?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to make sure. Like,
No, well, and
Everything falls to Public Works.
I could get on my swimsuit and dive down. If you like, but
No, I mean, it's something that I guess benefits the residents of the lake. It's mostly all North St. Paul residents on the lake. And, I wasn't involved with any negotiations on this when they first started talking about this, so just kind of been going with the flow and seeing what happens
Doesn't
here.
seem like a lot of extra work that's.
It's not. We met with Ramsey County last year to see basically we have to put thin ice signs. It's got to be monitored daily to make sure the signs are up. We have to keep records of that. There's some permitting that we have to do with the DNR each year, to fill that out before we can turn that on. Stuff we have to put out notifications a couple weeks ahead before we turn that on. So, I mean, it's in that little extra work, but.
We do a lot and we appreciate it, so I just want to least you can say.
Well, my guys will be like, you should have told them no.
The mayor's here, why didn't you
Yeah,
just tell him?
But
So you do have enough staff capacity to take this on?
we can
We're-
handle it.
As long as you don't get beat up when you get back.
Yeah, I'll get beat up.
All right, thanks for the info.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I have one for clarification. When I read through the packet, I interpreted the average electrical bill, I think, was $3,000 to $4,000. And I interpreted that between Valley Branch and Maplewood combined, they were gonna cover $1,300 or $1,400. But when I hear it from you, it sounds like they're gonna split the full dollar amount. So I just wanna make sure that,
Yeah,
like
so I think I might have averaged or rounded up there with a 50-50. The original conversations were 50-50. I don't think that as we went through the discussions, they knew exactly what the number would be every year. Both Valley Branch and City of Maplewood said, well, it would be helpful if we could just arrive at a number so that we can build it in our budget and we'll know each time. And then again, we can put in the agreement that if it needs to be adjusted, that we can adjust it over time. So I think it was originally intended to be 50-50. It doesn't come quite out to 2,000 apiece or 1,500 apiece, but I think they maybe split the difference to arrive at that 1,750.
You looking for a motion?
Yeah, so the recommended motion would be to authorize by signature of the mayor and city manager of North St. Paul, execution of the attached cooperative maintenance agreement for the Silver Lake aerator between the cities of North St. Paul, Maplewood, and Valley Branch Watershed District and Ramsey County.
Somebody move?
So moved, Your Honor.
So move, Councilmember Wong.
second.
Second, Councilmember Cole. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay? Thank you.
All right, thank
Appreciate it.
Welcome to the aerator business.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
You can figure out where all the good fish are.
All right, next up is the reports of the city manager and departments. Item A is the Community Development Department Annual Report 2022. Actually, at the last council meeting, we did have Brandy give an update on the department itself. So this is just the annual report, but if, there's probably nothing really to go over unless you have specific questions for her.
Yeah, just something that you can expect from us in January of 2024, all the accomplishments that we've done in 2023, hopefully.
No questions? Okay. All right, next up is the police department update. I'll turn that over to Chief Babenroth.
Thank you. All right. Another PowerPoint prepared for everyone. I just want to start off by recapping our award ceremony. Thank you to everyone who was able to attend. I thought it was a really greatly needed thing to do to honor all the great work that's going on by our police officer team. Just to highlight and swear in 2 fantastic new officers as well. So fun event. I was happy to put it on. Yeah, we kicked off the night with swearing in for Leah Gulbranson and Rafael Rangel Sanchez, 2 great new parts of this team. Leah's actually been here for a couple months, but we waited a little bit to get her a partner in crime to get sworn in with, so we at least had 2. But they're already a tremendous value to our team. Then we started the award portion with Sergeant DeCory, Officer Tyson, Officer Allen, Officer Betts. Way back when, a long overdue award for that team stopping a school shooting from taking place. They were informed of a student with a handgun, loaded handgun. They were able to get the kid from class, and then the fight was on, and they had to fight the student to remove the handgun from them. Then they found out that the student had threatened and intended to shoot another student that same day, so they essentially stopped the school shooting and likely saved the life of another kid who was the intended target. So a very high honor Medal of Valor awarded to those four for doing that. The next, we had merit awards for each team of officers, the whole team that responded to our tragic homicides in the city. First one on August 25th. That whole team got absolutely deserved a merit award for it. We ended up arresting the suspect within 12 hours of the crime, which is rare and very difficult to do. But thanks to that team, we got the suspect. So next one was for our another unfortunate, very tragic homicide. The team that responded to that one on November 1st with 3 very critically injured folks involved in that one. Thankfully, one of them did survive and was recently released from the hospital. Then we go on to the life-saving awards. So Cody Hadler saved a student from jumping off the pedestrian bridge over Highway 36. Just immediately ran and grabbed the kid as he was trying to climb over the fence. So absolutely deserving of a life-saving award. Then Officer Puniwala saved a person who had tried to hang themselves, cut down the rope as they were hanging, and near lifeless, and thankfully this person came back too. Then Officer Widman and Sergeant Fredericks saved a person from a 3rd-story window of a burning building at Cedarview, grabbed a ladder and got the person down. There was no way the person was going to be able to go out of the building any other way. So that was pretty awesome that they did that. Then Officer Wakamoto, Sergeant Fredericks, and Officer Widman stopped the bleeding. They responded to a person who had slit their neck with a box cutter from side to side, and they controlled the bleeding and got them to the hospital, and they saved their life. Person's still alive. And then gave a life-saving award to Maplewood Police Officer Kanda, who had worked on the one stabbing victim who did survive from our homicide incident. So she did a fantastic job saving that person's life. And we gave 3 leadership awards. One for Sergeant Ray Rosales for stepping in to become the acting chief of police in 2021. Ray did a fantastic job, and he's a great sergeant, so I was happy to give him that award. And then Sergeant Badowich and Officer Mao, they have just been absolutely working above and beyond when it comes to the evidence reorganization that has been going on. They donated, most recently, a ton of bikes to the Salvation Army, which is pretty cool to see, and a huge win for us in our limited storage. Getting all of these bikes out of our area was a big win as well. And then, destroyed up to over 500 items, lots of firearms, lots of controlled substances. So they really have our evidence practices and evidence room in a much better place than it has ever been. Then gave out 3 community police awards to Officer Wakamoto, Officer Widman, and CSO Bombchill. Miles for bringing back McGruff, the crime dog, and making some pretty funny videos. Crystal for setting up a lot of our Coffee with the Cops, and then Jonah for making every single community event that we either attended or put on in 2022. So very happy to give them all awards for the extraordinary things that they did last year. So switching gears a little bit, here's a rundown on calls for service and stats. Some of them don't have all of the fields of the past 5 years, but most of them do. Overall calls for service are up about 700 from 2021. I'll get into a couple highlights on the next couple slides. Sorry, it's pretty small print. Arrests are up, search warrants are high. Medicals are pretty stable. Our assists are up, assisting other agencies, which is great to see. It's just a sign of the collaboration that's going on amongst agencies. Investigations are absolutely up. And our person in crisis calls are also up. Here's a couple just highlights that you can read in a little larger print. So 356 arrests, nearly double from last year and the most in 2019. That is absolute sign of all the, just what's going on. There's crime occurring and there's proactive police officers on our team making arrests and catching criminals and preventing crime. 261 assist other agencies, highest in the last 5 years. Happy to see that. Work very well with all of our partner agencies in Ramsey County, and that is a definite sign of that. 145 investigations, highest in 5 years, likely the highest ever. 116% increase from 2020, 54% increase from 2021. 34 community organized events. That is, I didn't list them all up there, but that is our trunk or treat, coffee with the cop, our theft prevention events that we've done at Hillcrest, catalytic converter prevention, community policing partnership meetings that we've had with residents. They bring up a concern and then we sit down with residents and talk about the problem and try to develop a solution with them using their input. Those have been great. National Night Out was a big success this year. Went to St. Pete's for their Fall Festival, North Haven for their Summer Fest, put on Fishing with the Cop. We had a great time at Touch Truck Night, and most recently at the Fire and Ice event that the city put on. That was a lot of fun. 80 DWI arrests, nearly double since 2021. One of our officers actually just got 3 DWI arrests in one night. So we are preventing drunk driving and traffic deaths and accidents by drunk drivers. So really, really good to see that number. 370% increase from 2020 where we only had 17. So the cops are working and they're proactively trying to prevent crime. Unfortunately, we had 54 victims of motor vehicle theft in 2022. That's a lot of cars stolen. 30% increase in our person in crisis calls from 2021. And one of the biggest highlights of this entire update is we had 60 incidents that involved a response to resistance. That's a use of force. And we had absolutely 0 use of force complaints in 2022. I think that is a huge testament to show the training and the just the level of how great this team of officers absolutely is, because they know how to handle situations and they don't abuse any use of force. They do what needs to be done, what's reasonable and necessary, and that's it. So pretty happy to see that. Had the most domestic assault calls in 5 years at 175, 43.44 increase from 2018. Conducted 28 search warrants. That's on property, that's houses, people, vehicles, getting his cell phones, getting DNA swabs. 17 controlled substance DWIs, DWI warrants. 114 school resource officer incidents and investigations. That is a huge number from years past. There has been a lot of stuff going on. So I'll get to an idea of helping out with that number. But then to round it off, the 2 tragic homicides that we diligently investigated last year. So major concerns as far as our area and safety. We've had 2 police officers shot in suburban Ramsey County agencies within less than a year. This isn't Minneapolis, St. Paul, this is Roseville and White Bear Lake. So the safety issues to all cops are not contained to 2 cities in Minnesota anymore. They are hitting our neighbors, and they're out there. So that's a major concern, and thankfully both of those 2 officers are they're doing okay. Just the amount and type of investigations, more violent, they're more demanding and more complex with the types of crime that we're seeing. A major thing for me is I'm always concerned about officer mental health and wellness. From the President's Task Force report on 21st century policing, I think it was completed back in 2015, but there's still some very relevant things in that report. That report, just quoting from it, law enforcement officers are subject to more stress than the general population owing to the nature of their jobs. In addition to working with difficult, hostile individuals, responding to tragic events, sometimes coming under fire themselves, they suffer from the effects of everyday stressors. And then you cap that off with a stat from what Minneapolis PD is experiencing, an estimated $35 million spent on PTSD workers' comp claims due to more than 200 police officers leaving the department since May of 2020. So mental health and wellness is going to be a constant concern of mine, and I'm always going to be trying to do anything that I can to minimize the stress that naturally comes with this job. On the other side, we are seeing the mental health issues also in society as a whole. The persons in crisis calls, it's often, I mean, these are dangerous calls. It used to be domestics are still absolutely a very dangerous call, but persons in crisis, it's just the unpredictable. There's often chemical dependency involved. They're often suicidal. There's often a weapon, and it's just a dangerous call, and we're seeing more and more of it. The tough part for police officers in responding to these incidents is just we can respond to them and try to solve the situation in the immediate, which happens almost every day, and our officers do a great job. They know how to talk to people in crisis, and they do a fantastic job. But it's our inability to provide the ongoing support. So we solved the problem today, but the problem didn't go away. It's probably going to happen for the next team or the next shift. You know, we share information, and we try to give any next interaction the best opportunity for the best outcome based on past information that we learned from dealing with them. But ultimately, it's, well, if the medication wasn't taken on this next time, then the outcome might be even worse. So it's just a tough situation that we're seeing more and more of folks in crisis. Ramsey County is, and we actually took part in the developing of this. Sergeant DeCory was on a group that helped shape, it's called the Appropriate Response Model. They're still working on it, but this is going to be hopefully a soon new resource to all agencies within Ramsey County. We met as a Ramsey County Chiefs group last month, and they offered up their ability to come give a presentation to any council in the city. So I'm going to ask them if they'd be willing to come talk to all of you about what this program is. But we're hoping to get additional help wherever we can get it when it comes to folks in crisis and responding to them and getting them that ongoing care that we're in a tough position to give them everything that they need. Motor vehicle thefts are obviously a concern that's just rampant all over the metro, and with our 54, it has not missed us. we're working with other agencies around the county to try to catch them, but it is let's try to prevent them from ever occurring is what we want to focus on. So working with the Minnesota Department of Commerce and Fraud Bureau to get some additional resources and tools that we can try to prevent these crimes from happening. Violent crime, just a stat from the BCA Uniform Crime Report, 7-county metro area, violent crimes increasing. Aggravated assault, robbery, rape, and murder all jumped from 2020 to 2021. And, as I mentioned in my suspense update, it's the staffing in law enforcement, retention, and recruitment that we're all experiencing that is a major concern and focus to try to right the ship. As far as what's good, some progress in our police department. Absolutely focused on our culture, so we have a great team of sergeants on the police department, and myself and the sergeant team, we're focused on the team. So that is us giving the support, the care. We're very family focused, and everybody is on board with making sure that wellness, physical and mental, is a priority for all of us. Recently used some forfeiture money to get some new gym equipment in our PD garage. Everybody's pretty pumped about that. Helps reduce stress by a little physical activity, and having things like our award ceremony, just recognizing great work and even having conversations of saying, great job on that incident, I think go a long way. So we have a good culture going that I'm very happy about, and we're just going to keep trying to build it. One of my favorite books is Jim Collins' Good to Great. I don't know if anyone has ever read that, but one of the main takeaways from that book is you first have to focus on who, and then you focus on what when you're talking about building a team. So if you begin with the who rather than the what, you can more easily adapt to a changing world. If people are on the bus because of who else is on the bus, then it's much easier to change directions. We're getting the right people on the bus. It's taken a little while to get there. We're not just hiring to fill holes. If I wanted to be fully staffed, I could have absolutely done that based on the amount of applications. We didn't hire to fill needs. We hired the right people because they're the right people to be on the bus. And I'm going to keep doing that. As painful as it is to not be fully staffed, it is going to hurt us a lot more if we do not have the right person on the team. So willing to wait it out at the thought that it does depend on people. When we're in the profession of working with people all day, every single day, and having conversations with people and talking, we need the right people to do that. So we're getting there, but we are absolutely getting the right people on the bus. Also focused on our environment, just organizing stuff, throwing away stuff that we don't need, and that is not, we're no longer required to retain based on data practices and retention periods. Once we're beyond that, well, we're getting rid of the old. That's been happening a lot because at the end of the day, I think the environment that you work in matters when it comes to your overall happiness in your job. If you go to work and you're in a clean, professional-looking, updated environment that allows for efficiency, you're going to enjoy your job more and you're going to be able to do your job better because you're not surrounded with clutter and outdated stuff that doesn't work. So our overall workplace environment is improving. Council has absolutely been great when it comes to helping us get the right tools that we need for the job. I came with a lot of asks last year to try to get us up to speed. We're a little outdated when it came to a lot of different things, and now we are getting the things that we need so we can keep our officers safe, so they can keep the community safe, and so we got brand new radios last year. That was a major improvement. We got a repeater on this building. We couldn't hear emergency calls on our own radios when we were in the police department downstairs without that repeater. Now we can. We also couldn't hear them when we were in North High School. The school district thankfully paid for that repeater and got a repeater installed on North High, so now we can hear emergency calls when we're inside that building. Before, we couldn't hear anything. Even during that incident, we were fighting with a kid with a gun, could barely hear anyone that was in that building. So it's a major safety issue not having our radios function in here or any building throughout the city. We're getting a new records management system. They keep pushing back the start date. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be January 1st of this year, and then it was March, and now it is August of 2023. But knowing that it's a major overhaul, so they have to convert every single old record that we have, which is a lot of records, to the new system in order to let it work. We can't just say, okay, we're done with the old system. See you later, all the old police reports. We have to keep them all by statute for set periods of time. So we're getting there, but that's going to allow every single agency in Ramsey County is going to be on this system. We're going to be able to share information, have better communication and collaboration amongst all agencies. Other than St. Paul Police Department, they're the only one that won't be on the system, but every other agency will be. Very focused on our partnerships. It's rare that a day goes by I don't talk to someone from another police department around Ramsey County. We're absolutely having good communication with Ramsey County Attorney's Office, and we work with them almost every single day too. We had the National Black Police Officer Association here for an event a couple weeks ago. It was fantastic to have them host. Gave a bunch of bikes to a few families. That was great to be a part of that event. We're also hosting the National Latino Peace Officers Associations coming here for a meeting. So we're getting involved with all of our partners in law enforcement and various groups. So it's pretty fun. On the state side, we talk to the BCA. We work with them all the time. Department of Commerce and Fraud Bureau. They're a great partnership. And on the federal side, we've been working with the ATF and FBI on a couple cases. So partnerships are increasing. As far as community policing, we are absolutely achieving it. We're listening to residents and we're helping solve problems together. We're going to events, we're creating events. We're going to be creating even more events this year, which I'm looking forward to. We're having conversations and we're getting to know each other. The community's getting to know us and we're getting to hear from them. So it's been pretty successful in the community policing approach. As far as changes, switched up our vacation bid process to allow, so it used to be you bid by seniority. If you're the least senior, you basically get no shot at any warm weather vacation bid. Well, we changed that up. So on that, I wish I could put that old slide back up. So that team schedule, that A-team days, night team days, now we made it so you only have to bid for your vacation amongst your team. So you're only really bidding against 3 other people instead of 17, 18, our full staff. So everybody was pretty happy about that because that means more people can be off at the same time, because it really only matters if you're missing one from your team. The other teams can also be missing one because you're not impacting another team. So that was a nice change. I think that was warmly received by all of the officers. A fun policy change I made a while back was any officer or sergeant or any of our admin team, you can bring your dog to work with you anytime you want. It's been a fun thing. We have dogs running around. We don't have a canine program yet, but we have a lot of canines running around the PD. Thankfully, it's only been a couple accidents on the carpet, but it's pretty fun. I love having dogs around. I think it just adds to the stress, helps remove the stress level when you have your 4-legged companion back at the PD after you get back from a difficult call. So that was a fun policy change. As far as training, so last year, this is the amount that I submitted for reimbursement from the state. $61,700. It's a little more than that. And we spent even more than that. So that does include staff time, but that's courses, registrations. It's a big number. I think we got back a little under 20,000 of that from the state reimbursing us for training, but we're absolutely improving our training and doing more. So some of that's been through Ramsey County Attorney's Office. BCA came into a little critical incident training, crisis intervention and mental illness and crisis, autism training, conflict management, mediation, and recognizing and valuing community diversity and cultural differences to include implicit bias training that all of our officers have done in 2022. Then on collaboration, love working with this North St. Paul team. Every other division, fantastic. Ron is back there. I call him, hopefully not too much, but it's an awesome team to be a part of. The fire, public works, electric, finance, community service, everybody is just, they've been fantastic to work with. And anytime we need anything, it's people saying absolutely, how else can I help? So it's a fun team to be a part of, and just an enjoyable environment. So road ahead, I mentioned this in our suspense slides, but this is what the hopes are for the future. I'd like to get another SRO. Going to be talking to the school district soon on what that looks like. Also working with Maplewood and Oakdale, because we all share the school district, so we're all going to be a part of that conversation. And there's needs not just in North St. Paul when it comes to schools. So a second detective, you saw the stats on where our investigations are going, and there's an absolute need for another detective position. Love to have an additional officer for patrol backfill, community outreach, and community engagement, specifically assigned for those goals of completing the outreach and engagement with the additional option of vacation backfill. That would be a huge addition. Crime analyst would be invaluable. Some type of non-sworn mental health crisis unit in-house would be fantastic to have. K-9 program, absolutely looking forward to developing that. And then a reserve program, which wouldn't cost us much, and it's a built-in recruiting pool by having our reserves. And so those are the plans and goals for the road ahead. Also, been working with a lobbyist who is, I think, thinks it's a pretty good idea, and it might actually pick up some traction. What's going to help is if I get a resolution from council supporting this concept, but it's going to be for a bill that's going to provide state funding to all employee medical and dental costs for every cop in the state of Minnesota, with single or family coverage to help with retention, recruitment, diversity, morale, physical and mental health, all the above. And it also, I think, is going to slow down the incentives and the let's steal another agency's officers game that's going on. You just make it this would be a drastic change that I think changes the way law enforcement would be viewed as a viable option for going into as a profession. If it gets out there that law enforcement comes with free health care and dental care for you and your family, I think that's going to change some perceptions about interest in the field, and it wouldn't be the Band-Aid fix of shiny objects and $10,000, $5,000 here and there. It's going to keep people in for the long term because you would get it for the duration of your career. So I'm happy to put together some information on this and further discuss it with you all at a council meeting, possibly the one in 2 weeks, and hope to get your approval on a resolution to give this some support at our state legislature. Any questions? That's the last slide that I have, but happy to answer anything that I just went through or anything at all about the police department.
Questions?
Just want to say thank you for your service. We appreciate everything you do and your staff.
Thank you.
I had the pleasure of or the ability to tour your guys' department on the awards day, and I thought it was really cool to see where everybody was officed, and I got to see the evidence room and how clean that was, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. Brian had informed me about the dogs. I think that's incredible. I mean, that's the relief that brings and just the ease and fun for just even going in and seeing them is pretty exciting. So I encourage you all to get a tour of the police department. It's pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, you all are more than welcome anytime. Stop on ahead.
Just ask for a tour, don't get arrested.
Yeah, you want the tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, just want to say thank you. I know that mental health is a big priority for you, and you keep bringing it up, and I can't thank you enough for making that a priority for your team. And as you had mentioned, it's definitely an issue in society, so hopefully we can find some collaboration around that to support you and your team.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Phil, I'm nothing but consistent. I'm rough on you on the financial end, but the return on investment's there. What you've done in your short term with the staff, with the culture, with everything is phenomenal. Bringing in the drone program, the introduction of a potential canine program, brings the ability for those with on your team to learn and do other things, and hopefully retention, so they don't need to go outside of North St. Paul to seek other opportunities and the creation of other opportunities in here as well. So my hat's off, congrats.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you much, appreciate you.
Thanks.
Just another couple more quick updates with the staff meeting today. We got departments doing their training. Electric always sends their guys down to Marshall, where MMUA has their training center. So they'll be heading down. They were just down there for transformer banking, and now they've got a couple guys going next week for metering. Been doing some hiring. The fire department has just brought on Ethan Johnson last week. This is the second week, and he's a new dad with twins, actually, too. So, yeah.
Busy.
Exciting for him. Hope he got a lot of sleep before that. Yeah. Public Works is also doing some hiring. They're getting that posted out for their Public Works guy. Just an update, too, on the conditions that we're dealing with, and Ron can certainly attest to this, that the issues that we're having of getting material, not only in the supply chain aspect of it, the ordering, the costs, the delay on getting equipment. I was talking to a salesman today that for just single-phase transformers, they're anywhere from 72 to 80 weeks out after you order them. And that's at 3 to 4 times the cost of what they were just a couple years ago. We're just looking into buying some trucks. We used to be able to go through the state bid for that. Well, which would amount to probably about $15,000 in reduction of the cost of the truck. They aren't honoring that anymore, just because you can't get the vehicles even as just Joe Citizen, but we're not seeing those reductions. I think we got $1,000 off for these trucks is the best that they can do now. So really seeing some difficult issues with, our SIP and with the improvements in trying to upgrade some of our vehicles and equipment. and just trying to get equipment. Pretty tough time for that, so we're doing the best that we can. I know, for example, Xcel Energy has actually shut down some of their jobs. Just they don't have the supplies to energize some of these new projects. So it's kind of tough, but we're doing the best we can. That's all I have.
Thank you for the updates.
Oh, you know what? I got one more. I'm sorry. I just wanted to remind everybody, we have a Clean Energy Choice program that the electric department has through our power agency. And this is both to business customers and residential customers. So how the program works is the Clean Energy Choice provides North St. Paul electric utility customers with the opportunity to have 100% of their electricity coming from environmental friendly and renewable resources. This program supports meeting customer demand for more renewable energy and gives electric customers another choice regarding their electric supply. And this is a much cheaper option than, putting solar on your roof and dealing with that. Actually, we have our first solar customer sitting with us today. Dave, you were the first one on our system. So this allows us to, for businesses to meet their renewable and sustainable energy goals, promotes their business for being powered by 100% renewable energy. And how the program works, the program pricing, an incremental charge of 1/10 of 1 cent per kWh is added onto their bill on top of what the regular cost is. And actually, we do that, the city. So this building and our Public Works building is on that program, so 100% of the power that we use is through renewable resources. Per the current law in Minnesota, 20% of the power that municipals sell already has to come from sustainable energy, so that part is already considered into that, so it's the rest of that 80% that they can do that with. And residential customers, it's made nice and easy, it's low cost. It's either $1 to $3 as a monthly adder. $1 will get you 50% renewable, $2 75%, and for $3 extra a month, you get 100% renewable energy that will supply your house to that. So it's a nice, predictable, fixed monthly cost and easy way to sign up. We have it online, and hope we get more people signed up for it. As of right now, with the 12 cities that are in our power agency, we are the second, percentage-wise, of the amount of customers signed up for the renewable energy program. So it's kind of nice people are getting on board.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Reports, council, commissions, and committees. Councilmember Harvey, anything?
The planning commission was moved from last week to this week.
Well, hopefully get everybody there.
Yep.
And just to note that we're still looking for, we do have one that has applied, so hopefully we can get going on that.
Yeah, and I believe the interview was pushed out 2 weeks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's working on it.
Yep.
Councilmember Wong.
Yeah, so the Arts and Culture Commission met on February 1st, so that was last week at 6:30 here in the chambers. There was a lot of discussion about Project Snowy and finalizing the details around that and the communications around that, and then plans to work with our stakeholders, the Business Association. And they did have a question for council in regards to statues and whether council or staff would be interested in kind of designating some spaces, or if there are spots that would be suitable for a sculpture. So not sure if anyone has suggestions, but they're open to it. There's also the electric or utility box wrap project that's moving along. And we also had our first youth commissioner participate, and she stayed the whole time, so that's good. But yeah, she's 10th grade, and it's pretty remarkable to see some young people out and interested in public service. And the next meeting is March 1st at 6:30 here in the chambers.
Thank you for the update. Councilmember Schwiers.
Tim handed over the baton to me on January 25th, and I had the pleasure of joining the Park and Rec Commission. I am happy to hear, well, sad to see, but also happy that we have had 46 combined years of service between Nancy Thorson, Larry Amsden, and Heather Haas. They all three retired on January 25th. So much thanks to the three of them. We are tabling the chair positions until the next meeting. Laura Greenlee was not there for that. And I also want to give a shout out to Brandy. She provided a great presentation in regards to the responsibilities, expectations, and opportunities to the commission, which was pretty exciting to the Parks and Rec Commission as they are looking forward to some opportunities that do arise, like conferences and things like that. Lastly, I had the ability and was, as all of us were invited to the Police Award ceremony and the Firefighters Award and recognition ceremonies. And I have to tell you that it was an honor to be in front of both of your departments and recognizing both your departments. You guys go above and beyond call, and you work so well together as a community, not only within your department, but also with every department here. So I was grateful to have met both the new hires in the police department. You hit everything, so I won't hit anything more on the ceremony itself, but recognition's a big deal on my end as with the position I hold, so the award ceremony that you had provided was incredible. On Friday night, last Friday, excuse me, Jason and Brent put on their Firefighters Award ceremony and recognition for their department and volunteers. I'm not going to steal any of Jason's thunder as he will be presenting next week, but I had the, what's the word I'm looking for? I had the opportunity to sit with Matt Watt, who had been with the department for 13 years, and he was the lieutenant and also served as the chaplain. Unfortunate for us, Matt's family outgrew their capacity here in North St. Paul, so they moved to an outside area. However, he is now a member of the Lake Elmo Fire Department. So I really want to recognize his years of service and also serving as the chaplain here. That is all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Cole, anything, sir?
No update from EDA. Last update was done at the last meeting. A couple EDA things, though. EDA is currently conducting interviews this Thursday afternoon. There is one opening on the EDA, and there are 3 people that have expressed interest, which is exciting. So those interviews will be taking place on Thursday afternoon. Next EDA meeting, nothing says EDA like Valentine's Day, 14th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's for sure. Yep. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. General business. Councilmember Norby, yeah? Councilmember Wong?
I just wanted to also thank City Attorney Maddock for your presentation for the Arts and Culture Commission. You're welcome. But that's all I have.
Thank you. She's our lead now. Councilmember Schrening?
I also have to thank you for just tonight's presentation. It brought a lot more clarity to the role that we have within the city. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you. Councilmember Cole?
And I also had the opportunity to show up for the police hiring award ceremony, and Phil, I congratulated you afterwards. It's a phenomenal thing to do for culture. They truly do need to be called out and recognized. I don't think that's been done. I know it hasn't been done since I've been on council, and I don't know the last time it was done, so thank you very much.
On my side, I want to thank everybody that put the packet together. Yeah, I know there's so much work. We're up here doing the easy part of it, but I know there's lots of hours that go into everything. So you make our job much easier by doing the due diligence and getting all the information together. So I really want to thank the group and how well you do that for us. I also want to thank you for the information and to remind us about, you know, how it works and being able to, with our city manager, how what an important role you have, Brian, for all of us. You are the one that's the glue that we get able to get things done and be able to work with on that. So that's just important, and it's appreciated that you're able to corral this group here and keep us moving forward. So I want to thank you for all the effort you do too as well. Anything else? I think we're good. Let's move to adjourn. Anybody gonna
So moved.
do it?
I'll second.
Second? Who moved?
Me?
Oh, I
So
didn't hear
moved?
you, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Can I ask a question? Can I have my gavel back so I can adjourn it? I've been a little naughty, so she took it and hit it. Adjourned at 8:55. Thank you, everyone.
You girls okay?